Hi everyone, welcome back to UPSC in Focus. Today we are covering one of the most important topics of UPSC Prelims and Mains both, Mughal era, Naxalism and left-wing extremism. This came up in today's Hindu and it's been a recurring topic in UPSC for years. I've made detailed notes about this, so let's go through everything together. So starting with the first page, there is some usual news about Iran closing Strait of Hormuz again after US refused to remove the novel blockade. So NDA promised that they will remove the hurdles before women's quota. That's okay. And we have discussed in detail about the delimitation bill and the constitutional amendment that was going to implement that, and the women's reservation point of view after that. And we have covered everything in detail. But this bill has been deferred, so it's anyway important to have the details ready just in case it may come. And since this is not an act, we will not go into the details again, but nevertheless they are useful. Okay. And then medical colleges. Okay, I just 5 kg LPG. And there is news that there have been few um, ships that were blocked by Iran as a first for India, because they've never stopped any of our vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. But things might get tricky because of the US blockade. Okay, there are so much information about the polls and the delimitation bill being deferred. Okay, we will not go into those details. Yeah, see, this is the news that I was talking about. Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri on Saturday met Iran's ambassador to India, Mohammad Fatali, and conveys India's deep concern after two India-bound energy-carrying vessels were prevented from transiting the Strait of Hormuz by Iranian naval guards, and they were shot at as well, some of them, but there was nothing major. There is no escalation. And the Ministry of External Affairs also confirmed that it is not a summoning, but the ambassador was just called in to discuss. And this is one more news that while self-enumeration attempt was being made from Arunachal Pradesh, a place in Arunachal Pradesh was represented with a Chinese name. This has been an issue because the portal uses a generic Google Maps to get the data. So this has been rectified after being intimated via social media. It was taken up and was corrected later. So what was the area in question? It was Pasigat, East Siang district in Arunachal Pradesh. So this might come up in your prelims, where there are few particular areas in Arunachal Pradesh that Chinese claims that they are under the China. Okay, just remember those names. That will be enough. Yeah, there is one more thing here. The Cotton Textiles Export Promotion Council, is also called Texprocil, has submitted a representation to the United States Trade Representative rejecting claims of excess capacity and forced labor in the Indian cotton textile sector. This becomes important because there are certain criteria that makes the India eligible for certain exemptions, because if because of that conditions, it is considered as still underdeveloped or in developing country, but not a developed country. So if we prove that there is a significant increase in the capacity of our textile production, and or there is a forced labor in the sector, and that we have a surplus of the textile sector, so we may lose such certain privileges that are coming under being a developing country. So that's why it is important to project accurate figures from our side. So that's what they're trying to do. Yeah, there is one more article in economy about the Association of Mutual Funds of India. The industry lobby group for asset management companies spent 87.5% of investor awareness and education fund on media campaigns via digital platforms. That means this Association of Mutual Funds of India spent almost 87.5% spreading awareness and education only on the digital platforms. So majority of the funding goes to the digital platforms and advertising. This is a concern because it is being misused. As per SEBI, the Securities and Exchange Board of India, the Capital Markets Watchdog mandated AMCs, asset management companies, must set aside at least 0.02% of the asset under management for financial literacy initiative. So this is to bring awareness about the risk reward relationship in different asset classes. So there are and to he, ga, and to provide financial literacy for the unknown. This was the intention, but it is being sidetracked to promote and advertise their products with minimal concern for raising awareness. See, the investor awareness program leans more towards promotion than education. This creates a risk of form over substance compliance, where campaigns may satisfy regulatory checklists without necessarily improving financial literacy or investor outcomes in any measurable way. Okay, that's one. Yeah. Then there is this important article about East India's Maoist insurgency finally over. This comes into picture because Amit Shah has declared on for the March 31st deadline that we have finished with the Maoist movement of that was spread for 5 decades. So officially it is declared as over. So that takes importance in terms of UPSC prelims and mains. So there may come up a question both in prelims and mains about the Naxalism. It can be history, it can be the reasons for the downfall, or what were the impact of that with anything. So we will go over the what is the article mentioning most important points. So where did Naxalism begin? It traces back to a peasant uprising led by Charu Majumdar in 1967. Yeah, here. Led by Charu Majumdar in 1967 in North Bengal. It began in Naxalbari place in Darjeeling district. That's why it's called the Naxalite movement or Naxalism. He propagated Marxism, Leninism wrapped around Mao Zedong's principle that revolution should be driven by rural landless peasants through protracted armed struggle rather than by urban industrial workers. He advocated Mao's idea that political power grows out of the barrel of the gun, so it's a violent approach. Feudal landlords and authorities supported them were termed as class enemies. When the movement was crushed, Majumdar broke away from that to form All India Coordination Committee of Communist Revolutionaries. This movement spread its way into Andhra Pradesh Srikakulam, where leaders such as Vempatapu Satyanarayana and Adibhatla Kailasam led an uprising between 1967 and 1970, seeking to implement land to the tiller. By 1972, leaders have been killed and the movement subsided until Kondapalli Sitaramaya and Dr. Kolluri Chiranjeevi revived it by forming the People's War Group in Telangana region, which was then part of the Andhra Pradesh. So the Kondapalli Sitaramaya took the party to new heights by recruiting young minds from colleges, universities and NITs. Then came the formation of CPI Maoist under Muppar Lakshman Rao alias Ganpati. This became the single biggest internal security threat as declared by Manmohan Singh. They have created multiple wings, like for example PLGA, under the Central Military Commission. That means they have turned into full force guerrilla army, trained in modern weapons, and with the help of LTTE, they became experts in IEDs. So they became a very threat to security personnel and police. There have been certain drawbacks from their organization that brought about their downfall. To name a few, first is the internal strife that they have faced between themselves, and the rift can be of multiple origins. One is the ideological issue. Some favored violent individual annihilation, targeting individuals that are propagating the inequality and taking advantage of it or misusing the resources and all, while others emphasized on the mass mobilization. So that differences came up, and then there came many leadership changes sidelined by younger leadership. So the leadership was being replaced very frequently. And but once they committed to militarization, it achieved some brutal successes in Chhattisgarh and multiple countries. At one point of time, they have spread around 130, sorry, they've covered around 12 states from Kerala to Nepal, being called as the Red Corridor. Okay, but then by 2004, Maoists had already been pushed out of Andhra Pradesh by the elite. There was a group called Greyhounds Force. It was a special task force tasked with the elimination of Maoists. So they were pushed out of Andhra Pradesh, and every left-wing extremist affected state then formed similar special forces because it was a success of the Greyhounds Force that inspired them to create such force in their particular states. And the more recent one, Operation Kagar, delivered the final blow. So there was also a tribal and non-tribal conflict because most of the members were from tribal background, but the leaders were not. So that created a rift between them. And another factor is their outdated ideology. Means currently the government welfare schemes have been adapted to reach to the tribal areas as well, and the concept of class economy lost its relevance. But there was a document by Ganapati who suggested to have renew their ideas so that the intellectuals can focus on new issue areas, but it has been very silent. So there were multiple other issues as well, such as decline in recruitment, sustained security pressure, and the relative success of democratic protests undermined the cause of armed struggles. Means most of the demands, if met by democratic protests, it defeats the purpose of having an armed struggle. Okay, there are many important points here. For example, what is Operation Kagar, the Greyhound Force, or the Naxalbari area in Darjeeling that can come in prelims, and Operation Kagar is also called the Black Forest. And then in 1991 they were known as People's War Group. What is the Red Corridor? What is Janatana Sarkar, like that. So go through this article, it is very important. In the magazine also we have one Important take on the Mughals. I don't think it's part of this. Okay, anyway, I'll go over that. Okay, there is a full blown article about the Mughal era. So it starts with giving the details about the Panipat battle. A, this is important because 2026 marks 500 years of the Mughal Empire. So that may be cause enough to pose the question in other prelims or mains. So it's better to go through that. The first battle of Panipat was fought on April 21, 1526 between Delhi Sultan Ibrahim Lodi and Jahiruddin Babur, who was a Chagatai Turk. This battle established Mughal rule in India. Today's article focused on Mughal women, a very interesting and frequently asked in UPSC. There are few Persian or Mughal words that we need to remember. For example, the Khanams. Khanams mean noble women. Aghacha means junior wives. Zenana means matriarch who led a group of women on Hajj. And then came the important personality called Gulbadan Begum. She was Baba's favorite daughter. She wrote Ahwal-e Humayun Badshah, which is the popularly known version of Humayun Nama. This was translated into English by Annette Susanna Beveridge, and the introduction was given by Ruby Lal. Ruby Lal also wrote a biography on Gulbadan titled The Vagabond Princess, The Great Adventures of Gulbadan. And there were few articles mentioning about how Noor Jahan was hunting tigers and she was a co-ruler at the time. And there are some architectural influences that were gathered from Mughals and vice versa. There are few specific names that I'll go through. For example, Govind Temple of Vrindavan, built by Man Singh of Amar, is he was the highest ranking Mansabdar in the Mughal army. And there was Bishnupur Malla rulers built Jor Bangla, Ras Mancha, and the Chamrai temples. These feature sloping dome-shaped bungalows with curved eaves and which are then famously known as Shah Jahan's Jharokas. Yeah, and then there were some words that were created in Sanskrit to count to give meaning to some of the Persian words. For example, burqa is known as Chitranugupita in Sanskrit as Prakrit, and it means it hides your face. Cap became Shirshobha, meaning it adorns your head. Shoes are called Cherandharan, and shawl became Paramaram, means it's very soft. So there was an intermingling between our culture and the Mughals, and there were some opinions that since erasing Mughals history is not going to help because the more you erase the history from the books, the more interested people will become to learning it, and the more it is easier to spread fake news in social media to gather views. That that happens often, right? So it is counterproductive to what their objective is, what people say. But anyhow, we still have to go through the particular points to remember if they come up in prelims and we shouldn't be missing them. There is one more interesting article about geriatric care. Geriatric care means caring for the elders. This falls geriatric care falls under social justice and governance in GS paper 2. There are multiple perspectives here, multiple drawbacks that we have that indicate that we are not fully ready to equip what's coming for us, which is a huge population falling under the geriatric category. China is already facing it, some of the countries are already under it. So we have better time to manage our own issues, taking guidance from what is working and what is not working in other countries. But nevertheless, there are some things to focus on currently that are not going good, because in the current situation, most of the geriatric care is done by the domestic staff, which are who are completely untrained. They take additional responsibilities for financial means, but they are not trained. They cannot fully provide the care that they need. And most of the times, the general practitioners or the MBBS will act as a primary provider for the geriatric cases, but it is not to be so. It should be dealt as a separate special category, and they're not a substitute for comprehensive senior support. The premium assisted living facilities that are few but are there, they remain expensive and inaccessible to most of the population. Aging should be seen as a societal responsibility. We need to have innovative community based solutions to cater to the needs. There is a concept called time bank which is implemented in Switzerland and is reaping fruits. It should be gone through that. We should be going through that implementation and follow what works. So under the time bank concept, young individuals volunteer time to assist the elderly. They bank these hours for their own use when they become old. And we should be normalizing community living among cohort of friends or colleagues, designing housing that supports mutual care. And there is absolutely no emergency medical care system provided that specifically caters to these cases. Finally, the longevity without dignity is a hollow victory. We should be questioning ourselves whether we are, as a nation, prepared to build a world fit for the generation that built ours. Most of the time, the concern or the most of our time is spent on how are we going to protect this country, or what is going to be the future, what should whatever we do, how will it impact the future generation. So most of our energies are spent on what comes in the future and how we are prepared for it. But by doing that, we are often forgetting what is left behind, the older generation population that needs as much care as the children. There are few policies and things. One is the Bharat Maritime Insurance Pool. It was there before, but it was reinitiated, and it is initiative to manage large maritime risks, ensuring uninterrupted sovereign-backed coverage for critical exposures. This comes into perspective because of what happening in West Asia, Strait of Hormuz. So it is good that government is thinking of providing a risk-free insurance to manage such situations. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you for being patient enough to listen. Please like, share, and subscribe with fellow enthusiasts. If you if you feel this is right, please like and share. If you feel there is some room for improvement, please comment down below what works for you and what doesn't. Thank you.